this schedule really shapes up for a playoff run with a 12-team playoff.
Areas that, you need to get from experience, which is just, hey, I need to make quicker decisions.
How do you define success for this team?
National championship.
What's up, y'all? Bud Elliott here. This is Cover 3 College Ball Podcast, my summer school series. Today, it's BYU. That's Jeff Hansen, our best BYU expert we got. Jeff, welcome back, man.
Thanks, Bud. Man, crazy that it's been a year. How you been, brother? How you doing?
I've been well, man. Been well. Show's doing well. College football, despite all the reports that its demise has been a little bit overstated, right? So,
yeah, people keep watching, man. No matter what they say, they keep tuning in.
Especially BYU, man. BYU had a very nice year last year. Great bounce back. After 23 was a little sketch. 24 turned out 11 wins and smashed Colorado at the end. Nice work there.
Yeah, I was maybe a little bit more optimistic about BYU than the average fan was coming into last year, but I don't think anybody saw 11-2 coming. They had some bounces go their way, but anybody does when you win 11 wins. And really good year, and a lot of that team comes back. A lot of optimism in Provo coming into this season.
What are the key areas on offense that maybe you can see potential growth in for this season?
Quarterback is obvious, right? You look at what Jake Retzlaff did in 2023. So we go back a couple of years. He was terrible. I mean, he was objectively bad in those 4 games that he played in 2023. He made huge strides in 2024. Now, he still wasn't, a Heisman contender. He still has a lot of room to improve. But when you juxtapose what he did last year compared to what he did 2 years ago, this is a completely different quarterback. And there's a lot of belief that he can take a similar step forward going into 2025. He was battling with Gary Bohannon. He had to win a starting job going into 2024. But this year, he knows his weaknesses. He knows he's the starting guy. He's been able to work on those weaknesses without having to look behind his shoulder throughout a whole offseason. He knows the offense. He's the unquestioned team leader. He's been fantastic in the weight room and the locker room. I think you could see a different version of Jake Retzlaff. He's still going to be who he is. He's still going to make some bad throws. You're going to have some head-scratching moments where the accuracy just isn't there. But if he can figure out his checkdowns, right? I mean, a lot of his inaccuracy problems really isn't as much inaccuracy as it is bad decision-making. If he can hit those checkdowns and then continue to be who he was last year, I think you could see a really big step forward at the quarterback spot.
Running back wise, what are we looking like, and how high should the BYU running backs go in these college fantasy drafts?
I really like the running back room. BYU kind of does a running back room by committee a little bit. LJ Martin's going to be the guy. He's been the starter for the last couple of years. He's now a true junior. He's healthy this season. He's going to be the guy. But there's a lot of guys behind him that Aaron Roderick really likes. So you'll see a rotation. Sione Moa was a walk-on, kind of blew up during that Kansas State game last year and really proved himself throughout the season as a really reliable running back too. They've got some younger guys that they really like. Pokai Haonga is another one that they really tried hard to preserve his red shirt last year, and they were able to squeeze it in. He played just those 4 games. He's going to be unleashed this year. There's no questions or reservations about playing time. Those 3, there's a couple of other guys that you might see a little bit depending on injuries and stuff, but those 3 are really going to be the 3-headed monster. And you probably see something like a 70-15-15 distribution in terms of playing time.
With the last that are gone at receiver, it's Chase Roberts and Marion. Well, no, Marion transferred, right? So it's Chase Roberts and
TBD, right? Yeah. So it's Chase Roberts. He's the unquestioned wide receiver 1 going into the season. And even if Marion stuck around, it's still probably Chase Roberts. Behind him, it's a little bit more uncertain, but there's guys that BYU fans are really familiar with. Parker Kingston will be in that mix. JoJo Phillips is going to be in that mix. They've been around in the program a couple of times and have had some flashes throughout the last couple of seasons as being really good. There's another Nakua in the program. This time it's Tay Nakua, Puka's youngest brother, that he redshirt last year as a true freshman. He's in the room for another season. So there's a lot of guys. I think the one that I'm the most optimistic about is Cody Hagan. He's a former 4-star. He played with Jackson Dart all the way back at Corner Canyon High School, went on his mission, redshirt last year as a freshman off of that mission, really had to shake off that mission rust after not playing for 2 years. He's the real deal. I mean, he was down to, I think it was Stanford, USC, and BYU coming out of high school. He's a smaller guy, kind of built a little bit like Keelan Marion, who transferred to Miami. And I think you'll see him slide into that role. The talent is unquestionably there. Not a ton of experience, but I think at some point, right? I mean, talent rises up. You don't get experience unless you get experience. He'll get better as the season goes along.
How's the offensive line looking for BYU this year?
Yeah, the interior feel great about it. They've got 4 or 5 guys at guard, center guard that you feel really, really good about. Waylon Lapuaho is a legitimate NFL prospect at guard. He actually flexed out and played tackle during the bowl game against Colorado. He's really versatile, really athletic, but he's a guard, and he's kind of the anchor of the offensive line. At tackle, it's a little bit of a question mark. They've got some guys that they feel really confident in. Isaiah Jatta has been in the program for a couple of years now. They add Michigan transfer Andrew Gentry. They feel really good about those two, but they're new, right? And until they prove it on the field on Saturdays, you're always going to be a little bit unsure. I think the depth at tackle could be a question mark. If either Jatta or Gentry go down early, BYU could be scrambling a little bit, but that starting unit looks really good. And then on the interior, I think they go too deep and you feel pretty confident.
So certainly an offense that could improve from last year if Retzlaff takes a step forward and if the offensive line can run block a little bit better, they should be maybe able to overcome some of those receiver losses. Jeff, let's take a break here, and then when we come back, let's talk a little BYU defense.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
All right, y'all, welcome back in. This is Cover 3 College Ball Podcast, Summer School Edition. It's BYU. It's my man, Jeff Hansen, giving us all the scoop on the BYU Cougars. So Jay Hill's defense last year, pretty darn good, man. Very, very effective, caused a lot of havoc for opposing offenses. Now the linebacker group is almost all intact, and the defensive line group is mostly gone. I think, at least based on my read of this depth chart. How is this group going to be different? How are they going to have to adjust how they play, and who are we think maybe could step up for them?
Yeah, you look at the defense last year, and I know you guys talked about this a bunch on your show throughout the year. How much weight, how much luck really is there in turnover luck? That's an argument for another day, but BYU forced a lot of turnovers, right? And so whether it was lucky or whether it was whatever it was, I don't know that you can count on that happening again. So BYU had to figure out a way to add the talent to get better all the time. Can't just rely on those turnover plays, right? So you saw a ton of emphasis on the defensive line, in part, Bud, because you mentioned it, they lose a lot of guys that have been in the program for a little while. If you look at last year, it really felt like, okay, maybe they'll give a little bit on some of the talent at the defensive line and roll with their seniors. They had some freshmen who were really, really good, but let's roll with the seniors. Let's roll with experience and hope that carries us, consistency, things like that. And for the most part, it worked. This year, the experience is gone and they've got no choice but to roll with the talent, but there is a lot of talent on that defensive line. Ephraim Asiata is a pass rusher on the edge that they feel really, really good about. He's the son of former NFL guy Matt Asiata. He looked great as a true freshman, a little small like most true freshmen. He's bigger, he's faster this year. He had a phenomenal spring. There's a couple of edge rushers that they've added either by way of the portal in Tausili Akana, who was at Texas. I think he was a 5-star. If he wasn't a 5-star, he was close to it coming out of high school. Was buried on the depth chart at Texas and for whatever reason couldn't gain weight. I think Texas had him listed at like 208, 210. And as an edge rusher, right, that's just not going to get it done. He's put on about 30 pounds since he got to BYU. He looks like the prospect that everybody thought he would be coming out of high school. Hunter Clegg, he transfers over from Utah after his mission. So that's another edge rusher that they feel really good about. It's not guys that you've seen on the field, but when you look at the star talent in terms of what BYU normally has, it's as much star talent as they've ever had coming off the edge. The interior of the defensive line, kind of the same story. A lot of emphasis in the transfer portal. They had 3 guys that are going to have a huge impact on this team. Keanu Tanavasa coming over from Utah. That's a big win for a lot of reasons for BYU. Anytime you steal a guy like that from your rival, right, that's huge. Keanu Tanavasa is the real deal. Justin Kirkland comes over from Oklahoma State. Those two, you probably pencil them in as your starters, and that's as good of a duo as BYU's had on the interior. 15, 20 years. It's been a really long time. They've got some depth coming back. Anisi Purcell is a name that BYU fans should be familiar with. John Tamoy-Peau is another one. So they've got a lot of depth that they feel good about, but those two top dogs at the top with Tonavasa and Kirkland, there's a lot of excitement from Jay Hill and Sione Poha in what that defensive line looks like.
How about the back seven?
Yeah, feel good about the linebackers. I mean, everybody is pretty well back. They lose Harry Taggart. He transfers to Cal. He was a big part of what they were doing. His position on the depth chart wasn't super solidified coming out of spring, and I think he went and looked for that solidified starting spot, and I think he's going to get it at Cal. But BYU still feels really good with Jack Kelly and Isaiah Glasker. Those two are all conference-type players at linebacker. They're going to lead the way in that linebacker room. Siale Acera is healthy. He was a linebacker 2 years ago, really burst onto the scene, and then had a foot injury in the final game of 2023. Really missed most of 2024. He's back. He's healthy. He looks great. He's a guy that if you would have said prior to that injury, like, hey, where do you project him? I think any BYU coach would have told you that he's an NFL guy. He's a fantastic linebacker. And then they've got depth. They've got a lot of freshmen, kind of how they do in some of those other positions. A lot of freshmen, but that's kind of the name of the game in the portal era, right? Like, who has experienced depth anymore? It just is hard to find. So if you've got talent in the depth chart, even if they aren't experienced, that's about as good as you can get at this point.
Absolutely. So defense could take a step forward again from last year as far as overall quality of play. Maybe if the turnover stuff is a little more neutral, maybe it holds serve. Jeff, schedule-wise and expectation-wise, how would you define a successful season for this BYU squad?
Yeah, the schedule, the Big 12 kind of did BYU some favors, I think. There's a 3 or 4 game stretch with Utah, at Iowa State, at Texas Tech, and then TCU. That's the toughest 4 game stretch for sure. But I don't think that any of those games are going to be more than a 1-score spread in either direction. I think those are pretty tightly contested games. BYU, maybe they go 2-2, and you feel pretty great about that. Everything else on the schedule, on paper at least, right, like, looks pretty favorable for BYU. I think that the expectations in Provo are to compete for a Big 12 championship again. I don't think anybody's crazy enough to say, win or go home. If they don't bring home the title, they don't get to the playoff, then they're done. And that was a failure of a season. But I think most BYU fans expect to be in contention for a conference championship, or at least a spot in the conference championship game as the season winds down in November.
Love to see it. Jeff, always appreciate this. Really good time. And BYU probably making some noise in the Big 12 this year. Thanks, buddy.
Love it. Thanks, bud.